Hi, everyone. Welcome again to From the Ground Up. I'm John Boytnott, your host of this Grit Daily podcast, where we talk to entrepreneurs from all over the world about the companies that they're working on and how they're taking part in the changes in technology in our world today. And today I'm joined by Miles Beckett, the CEO of Flossy. How you doing, Miles?
I'm great. Thanks. Thanks for having me, John.
Yeah, no, great to have you here. And tell us a little bit about your background and what Flossy is.
Sure. Yeah. So way back when, I am a doctor, so I went to med school. I was a surgery resident, and then I've been a serial entrepreneur, started a few different companies. Originally in the digital media space, I was super involved in YouTube in the very beginning of YouTube, and then started a SaaS business in the healthcare space, credentialing doctors, and then most recently with Flossy, where we building out a suite of AI agents for dental practices.
All right. Yeah. So we are hearing more and more about AI agents lately, and if you have a Chat GPT and you're paying the Pro plan, you can get access to an agent which will do tasks for you. And I don't have that yet myself, but I am interested. I'm hearing that we'll all eventually be using these agents. How does this roll into Flossy and what you guys do?
Yeah, so I mean, an AI agent is basically a piece of technology that can complete tasks, on its own when you give it some set of instructions, and then, it'll come back to you with effectively the results of that work that it's completed. So, they can serve either, as an augmentation to existing staff. In some cases, could even replace work that the staff might be doing and fully handle it. Flossy started by building a voice receptionist or voice agent for AI practices. Voice has been particularly, hot right now in the tech space, mainly because it works really well. And it's providing a lot of utility to customers. So that's kind of what we've gotten started with.
Okay, so you have a dentist office, and there are inefficiencies there. Okay, tell me about the inefficiencies in a dentist office and why they would need something like Flossy.
Sure. Well, I mean, dentists face a lot of staffing challenges. So there's a huge amount of turnover in the dental industry. It can be a rotating door at times. And in particular, for the work of a receptionist, usually that's not a dedicated role. Typically, there's somebody or several people maybe at the front desk. Oftentimes, they're doing a bunch of different stuff. They're dealing with patients that are in office. They're scheduling them. They're rescheduling them. They're having them pay for their visit. They're providing information to those individuals. It might even be a person that has, they might be a dental tech. They might even actually have clinical skills, but they're not using it, answering phones. And so, so that's really, the main challenge that they're facing is both the amount of work and volume of calls that's coming in, a lot of which are missed. And then also just people that are working double duty that could be taking their time seeing patients rather than answering phones.
Yeah. So Flossy, it handles what does it handle exactly? The scheduling? Tell me some of the things that Flossy handles in this situation.
Yeah. So, about 80% of the calls that come in are scheduling related. So definitely like kind of the core use of Flossy, our agent Fiona, is in scheduling patients, whether it's a new patient or an existing patient. In addition to that, she can also handle when people call in and say they're running late. A lot of the calls that offices get, particularly after hours in the morning, so like before the office opens, is, hey, I'll be late to my appointment, or I'm going to be 50 minutes late, or I can't show up, I got to reschedule. So she handles rescheduling. She handles taking audio messages and sending it to the staff, letting them know that patient is running late. She can also answer questions. So there's a pretty robust FAQ aspect to the product where we take a ton of data from the practice, and it gets trained into the Fiona model for that practice. And so she can answer questions like when they're open, when they close, when a certain dentist is there or not. She can even answer clinical questions about what is this procedure like? What's it going to be like for me or for my child? Fiona's actually passed the dental board, so she has a lot of clinical knowledge.
Does Fiona is she able to interact with like you actually talk to folks, or they is it, how does that work? Is it over the phone, or is
Yeah.
more like, yeah? So
It's over the phone. So yeah, you call the office's number, and if they're using Fiona, you'll talk to her instead of talking to a person. Sometimes that might be after hours or weekends, or it could be a full replacement to the call staff. Yeah, and it's like scary good. Like it
Wow.
feels very close to talking to a person. The only thing really at this point I would say that's a giveaway is there's a little latency in her response to the caller. That's something that we're working on, and a bunch of the people in the industry are working on. I think the latency issue is going to be solved in 3 to 6 months, and
Wow.
it really will feel like indistinguishable from talking to a person.
What have the improvements in efficiency been like so far that you've learned?
Yeah, I mean, so some of the practices that we work with, about 35% of the calls that they get during the day are actually going to voicemail because
Mhm.
either the person at the front desk is on the other line or they're away from their desk. And so, especially if those are new patients, basically none of those are getting scheduled then for a visit. So she basically pays for herself in like, the first day or week that you're using her, because as soon as you get one booking, that's the equivalent in revenue that practice would get to the cost of using Fiona for a month. She's about like the tenth the cost of a normal employee.
Why is there? I suppose there's just not enough staff at a lot of these, dental, offices. Why is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, if you're an individual practice, or even if you're a small DSO that has 10, 15, 20 locations, you probably don't have a call center. So each of your practices are individually answering calls. And so, and you're not going to double staff. Like it's extremely uncommon to have enough call volume to have like even one person full-time dedicated to answering calls, let alone two. So if you only have one, and if all they're doing is answering calls, if they're on a call, they're missing any other calls that are coming in. So it's virtually impossible to properly staff a dental office to field even 90%, 80, 90% plus of the calls that are coming in. So there's just kind of this inherent inefficiency and inability to handle call volume. So it's a really good solution. And then even if you're a DSO with a lot of locations, maybe you have 30 employees that are part of a call center. Like you probably don't need that big of a team with Fiona. And if you're growing really fast, maybe you keep the team, but you're not hiring additional people as you grow.
Um, so this sort of leads into a question about the vision of the future of AI in healthcare in general. How do you, beyond just dentistry, how do you see, what are some of the agentic applications throughout healthcare? I mean, I think this is something that's becoming more widely known, but a lot of people don't quite know what they're about to witness in the next 5 years or so. So they talk to me about like how agents will play a bigger part for healthcare in the coming years.
Yeah, and I very much agree with what you just said. People don't really realize what's coming. When AI, generative AI, first became fashionable like a year and a half ago with Chat GPT launching, there was a lot of fear of like Terminator scenarios going to take over the world. I think that's really overblown. The core of this technology, an LLM, which powers all of this generative AI, it's really good at predicting the next item in a sequence, the next token, whether it's a word or a sentence or a number or whatever it might be. But that's all it can do. So in a certain sense, it's very simple. Now, however, that's actually really powerful. So I think that was all overblown, but people really haven't fully thought what are the implications for jobs that are currently done that are really routine and really are just kind of repeating stuff over and over with minor variations, especially if it requires voice, either inbound calls or outbound. So I think there's going to be a big impact. I mean, not just in dental, but healthcare more broadly. But I think it'll be positive. I mean, if you think about it this way, like really as a clinician or anybody working in the healthcare industry, you're there for the patients, right? You're there to be with them, particularly for the people that are delivering clinical care. And that's really what it's about. I mean, the administrative staff that has grown around the healthcare industry, which has grown like, way faster than the number of clinicians has grown, is really just there to support all of these redundant tasks that most people don't even like some of those jobs, right? So I think we're going to see a focus on clinicians spending more time with patients and being able to deliver that empathy and care that they frankly get bogged down with the administrative stuff and aren't able to do right now.
So basically, the vision is that, things like AI and agents will handle more of the stuff that people don't particularly enjoy doing. But um, what about in terms of patient facing? What's sort of what's the future in terms of patient facing AI
Yeah.
interaction with patients? How does that look?
Yeah, and by the way, to what you just said, like the way I think about it is there are a lot of jobs that people do right now that are not human jobs. They like right now there's an entire job category that is called insurance verification that exists both in healthcare broadly and in dental that is literally people just calling insurance companies to make sure that a patient's insurance is valid and what it covers.
Yeah.
So like, why is a person doing that? Like a person should not be doing this job. No person wants to do that job. There are
Mm,
better, there's like a time is better spent doing other things. So I think that's just one example. And there are like thousands of tasks like that that AI is going to take over. In terms of your question about the patient facing, I think that it can help expand care less expensively to a broader set of people for that initial almost triage and intake to then get the funnel down so that the human clinicians can deal with the problems that really require their intervention. So there again, like to use the dental use case, so many of the calls are actually just scheduling calls, and it's similar for doctors as well. Or there's simple questions, right? Like there's lots of questions that probably a person doesn't need to answer, but an expert system with voice on top of it can answer those questions. I mean, if you think about anxious parents, have kids, when they're little, like there's a lot of questions that like the answer is just they're fine, right? They're going to be okay. They're crying. It's all right. So
yeah.
yeah.
Keep going. Yeah. it's it's a really interesting subject. So you did this in 45 days. I'm in my notes here in talking to some of your people. It said that you built the AI, you built Fiona in just 45 days. Talk to me about that process. How'd you do it so quickly?
Yeah, so we use AI ourselves to build products. So, there's been a huge amount of innovation around code generation and product building using AI. We were using a product called Cursor, which many people have probably heard about. It's now the fastest growing SaaS company in history, going from like $1 million of revenue to $100 million in 1 year. We actually use another product now called Windsurf, which right now is working a little bit better. So we built a prototype of Fiona in like 48 hours to kind of prove out that this is doable. And then we built a production ready product that could go live with customers in 45 days, which prior to AI, now some of that is the technology we use. Some of that is we've been in the dental industry for a few years now with some other products. So we're very familiar with the space. We have close relationships with dentists, get a lot of feedback, but yeah, I mean, the development cycle has definitely gotten way shorter.
You yourself, you had a background in plastic surgery. How did you go from that towards building, an AI company?
Yeah, so I went to medical school at UC San Diego. I was in a plastic surgery residency program at
Mm.
Loma Linda, and I liked operating. I didn't love being a cog in the healthcare system, and this was back in the early 2000s. And for me, the writing was kind of on the wall that it was going to be a tough path for physicians. And I always was very entrepreneurial and really into technology. I'm not an engineer, but I had programmed like a little bit in high school, so I'm somewhat technical. Yeah, and I just kind of honestly made the leap. I quit the surgery program, moved back to LA. I was very also into making short films and stuff, and I got involved in YouTube at the very beginning of YouTube and ended up creating what became the number one channel on YouTube from like 2006 to 2008.
Do I dare ask what that channel was?
Yeah. Yeah, you can Google it. It was called Lonely Girl 15, and it was basically a blogger on YouTube that everyone thought was a real person. Turned out it was a production that we were running. And if you watch the videos, it was kind of like watching a teenage soap drama type thing, like a Dawson's Creek. And
Oh,
yeah, anyway.
I might have liked that show many years ago.
Yeah.
Going back to Flossy, though, what's the learning curve like for dentists who start to use the tool?
Yeah, well, so because she is an agent, this is the beauty of AI agents as well. You're not, there is an interface, but you're not really selling a product to help them get work done. You're selling a product that does the work for them.
Hmm.
And so the learning curve is almost nil. Like the dashboard to interact with Fiona is extremely simple. It's a call log, and you can listen to calls that have occurred between Fiona and patients that call in. You can give her feedback in line, so you can sort of thumbs up or thumbs down. You can write notes. All of that gets fed into the model. You can conduct one-on-one with Fiona, similar to how you would with a regular employee, where you can message with her, and at some point, we'll probably just have you talk to her. And that feedback literally gets incorporated into the model to improve it. So it's really intuitive. It really feels like you are interacting with a human employee.
How do the patients that you've noticed, how do they get along with it so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. They talk to her normally. Some of them will sort of talk to her like they're talking to an IVR because that's what they're used to.
Yeah.
But other patients will talk to her just like they're talking to a human. And I think over time, as people realize that these systems are not like traditional IVRs, which we're kind of trying to help educate them about in the call, they'll just start talking to her like a,
IVR is like a phone tree kind of a thing where it's like
yeah,
press
exactly.
that kind
Exactly. Yeah. And we're all used to, you get the phone tree and you're like, agent, 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 right?
of,
So,
yeah.
you see people doing that, or you see people like speaking in single words, right? Um, but we have right now at the top of the call, Fiona will say, you can talk to me just like a normal person. And what we're thinking about doing now is actually throughout the call, having her say, hey, like I've noticed you're talking to me like I'm and a voice system, but you can actually talk to me like a person. So
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of them, whether it's the DMV or United Healthcare, one of these, whatever
sure.
organization it is, you talk to them or you talk to the phone tree, and they've got it turned up so that any noise you make, they'll ask you a yes or no question. You're supposed to say yes or no. You never get a chance to actually say yes or no because it's so sensitive that you might have like a paper rustling in the background. It'll hear that, it'll not recognize that, and it'll be like, I'm not unable, it's not working, or let's try this instead. And you never had a chance to even try the first thing that it asked you to try. Anyway, hopefully.
No, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And so actually, it's funny you said that because we literally have been doing incremental releases to improve just that. So we actually just rolled out a new release that is a whole new background noise filtering technology that actually Zoom uses that should improve it even more. But yeah, all the conversations we have internally are about that level of nuance. Like, we got to make sure we filter out the background noise, but they need to hear the Fiona needs to hear the person perfectly. She needs to be able to know if there's a person in the background talking and that's not the person in the foreground. So
Mm.
it's it's very easy. There's a lot of voice agents out there. It's very easy to build like a proof of concept, but to really, really make it work very well in production, there's like hundreds of nuanced points like this that you kind of have to address.
And Fiona's a voice agent. Is that what you called her?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is a type of AI employee. What are Let's look into the future and see where are some other places where we'll start to encounter AI employees.
Yeah, well, I think voice technology can be used both in an inbound capacity and an outbound capacity. So right now, Fiona's fully answering calls inbound, but she will start doing outbound calls to reschedule patients proactively or whatever might need to be done, or say, hey, you need a checkup. It's been a while since you've come in. So outbound is one. Insurance verification. So we're definitely going to be launching an insurance agent that will both function using APIs with the insurance companies, but also will do the calling outbound to talk to the insurance company, do the verification. Marketing, we think there's opportunities, both in terms of automating the spend management, but maybe even handling inbound calls that come from sales channels. So again, using voice. Um, and then we've also looked almost at like business intelligence, like helping dentists run their practice. And I think these are all applicable across healthcare. And I think even more. I mean, I think in medicine, you're seeing a lot more clinical triage because a lot of medical issues can be handled over the phone, maybe with a prescription that comes after from a doctor behind the scenes. In dental, a bit more of that needs to be handled in person, but yeah.
As far as sort of the vision for how does robotics and a long-term vision for AI, like how does that all connect into future medical practices? Do you what give us a little glimpse of what it might look like in 2035 or something along those lines? What are some future concepts for the way this could all look in our when we go to the doctor, go to the hospital, et cetera?
Yeah. Yeah. One of the analogies that I use is the future of healthcare and AI and robotics, is it going to look like an elevator or look like an airplane? And when I say that, elevators used to be manual. There was an elevator operator that sat in the elevator and would run it. And then when technology got better, elevators became automated, and they're fully automated. You get into a box. Half the time, those buttons, when you push them, don't even do anything. Well, the floors do, but the open button or close button, half the time, yeah, they've done studies, they're not even connected. And the elevator just runs, right?
Yeah.
Airplanes are actually fully automated. Airplanes can take off, they can fly, they can land completely on their own. They require no pilot. And yet we have a pilot and a co-pilot. And oftentimes when we see an accident, it's because the pilot or co-pilot overruled the AI and screwed something up.
Mm.
Now, I don't think pilots are going to go away for a very, 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 very long time, if ever, because the stakes are so high. And I think when things are life and death or highly emotional, I think we want that human connection, and we feel that we need it. And I think actually cars are interesting because the world hasn't fully decided yet, right? It seems like we're headed down a full autonomous path, but interestingly, Waymo still has a steering wheel. Like, is that going to go away? Probably. I think for things like healthcare, there's still going to be doctors. There's still going to be clinicians, even if they're not doing that much, right? One good example is in urological surgery, where they'll do prostate removals. There's been fully robotic prostate removal for a while now. The doctor is involved, but it's 90+% the machine. But the doctor is there. And I think even if that became fully automated, I don't see the doctor going away. And I think the same for dental. There are some companies building dental robotics. I don't think they're going to replace dentists. I think they're going to augment dentists.
Yeah, so much of I can see if it's sort of a surgery where the same type of thing needs to happen, more or less, more robotics could be in there. But so much of the dentistry is I can see it possibly with that too. But so much of why you pick a dentist, at least for me, is you like how much experience they have, you like their bedside manner, you like the way that they want you to think about the possible procedures that you could have, all that
Right.
stuff. It is yeah, I'm actually seeing my dentist next week, and I'm looking forward
Right.
to it because I like him. And I feel like he won't try and, I've been to more of a sort of a clinic type of a dentist where they're just sort of, they barely know you. They are looking to get whatever, that they can do some type of procedure. There's several teeth that need to be, worked on. They want to try and get as many of those going as possible.
Right.
All that.
Upselling.
Yeah, the upsell. So I don't get that with this other dentist. So I definitely see what you're saying about how you know there aren't not in every situation do you need a robot yet. Exactly. Where does that? Yeah, it's the transition between the two is sort of a organic thing. We don't know exactly what it's going to
Well, and I think to your point, like in dentistry and in many parts of medicine, you have a choice of the treatment that you get done, right? There are certain, medical, probably in medicine, the majority, you don't really have a choice. Like there is a medical protocol, and the best treatment for your diabetes is this, given the stage or whatever. But, one example in medicine is like cosmetic surgery. Like, I don't know, do what you want. Like,
Yeah.
what kind of, do you want a facelift? Do you want a brow lift? Do you want, there's no right answer, right? There's guidance. And in dental, that is actually often the case, where oftentimes you have options. I mean, the biggest one is if you have a problem with a tooth, you can extract that tooth. Problem solved, but you don't have a tooth. And most dentists, they want to preserve your teeth because cosmetically it's better, and also for chewing and stuff, it's better longer term. And then there's an array of options. Maybe there's an implant, maybe there's a crown, maybe there's a veneer, so, and I think that type of a thing, like how could you have an AI? By definition, the patient needs to decide, and they
Mhm.
probably want another human to talk to. I don't know if they want to be talking to just an AI.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. For me, that's the main thing is feeling comfortable with the other person making that connection and then
Right.
moving forward. Partly because of that. What anything that we've missed? Have we missed anything? I just want to make sure. What do you feel like you haven't had a chance to mention that you would feel remiss if you didn't?
No, I think we covered a lot of it. I mean, yeah, I would just say, I think the one thing I would just say, which we sort of touched on, is, you know, don't be afraid of AI. Embrace AI. Like, it's not coming for your job. I think it's going to expand the job opportunities. I think it's going to make work a lot better. And I think that, it's coming whether we like it or not. So best to embrace it.
Sounds good. How can people check out Flossy? How can people check, see what you're saying online, maybe social? How can they
Yeah.
see what you got going on?
Yeah, yeah. So they can go to flossy.com, Flossy.com, or they can follow me on X. My handle is M Beckett.
All right. Miles Beckett, the CEO of Flossy. Great to have you on From the Ground Up.
Thanks a lot.